This morning.
This is AIM Agenda. With me now, Liberal MP Tim Wilson and Labor's Peter Khalil. Gentlemen, good morning to you both. Peter,
morning, Kieran.
First to you. Let's start where we finished off with Simon Birmingham. It is blatant hypocrisy of Labor to be campaigning now to lock in against the ruling of the Fair Work Commission, which the opposition leader said in the lead up to the election, very plainly with Neil Mitchell, that he would accept the independent umpire's decision. What's going on here?
Kieran, I take offence at this term hypocrisy because there's been a bit of distortion about this. Let's just be clear. We respect the Fair Work independence of the Fair Work Commission. Bill actually, when he was... Hold on. Bill, I got 8 seconds in. Bill actually, when he was minister, adjusted the Fair Work Commission to ensure that penalty rates were considered a very important part of that.
So why undermine it now?
No, well, it's a commission, and a lot of people have been talking about it like it's an umpire and so on. We want the Fair Work Commission to continue its work. We're going to adjust its remit so that it makes sure
it's not an umpire. It's not the independent umpire.
So the workers will make sure that they have their take-home pay.
Is there a risk that you undermine the whole structure of whether it was a Fair Work Commission or the industrial watchdog before, that this has been something that's underpinned our workplace system for decades?
Yeah, and
if you undermine it by trying to legalise...
Well, you're using words. You're saying it's being undermined. It's not. I mean, this is hypocrisy. If you want to use the word hypocrisy, the government actually got rid of one of the remuneration tribunals for driving or trucks or whatever it was in government. So that's hypocrisy. We want the Fair Work Commission to continue to do its work. We think it's important that it makes sure that it's adjusted so that they protect workers' pay, take-home pay. So if any reduction in penalty rates...
You accept the ruling when you agree with it?
No, it's an adjustment of the law.
This seems a very
it's an adjustment of the law. It's an adjustment of the law. The Parliament has a role. It plays a role.
All right, let's hear Tim Wilson, your response.
Well, firstly, we need to remind ourselves the Fair Work Commission was established by the Fair Work Commission Act 2009. It happened and was established under the previous Labor government. It was also established with exactly the powers that it operates with today. So for the Labor Party to turn around and reject the decision and say it needs to be reformed, they're reforming their own system when they don't like the outcome. The Fair Work Commission isn't just focused on protecting people's workers' penalty rates, so that is an important part of its role. It's also focused on how to actually increase employment opportunities for those people who aren't employed. And you know, Peter, as well as I do, that youth unemployment is at a stubbornly low level. And decisions like this, as challenging as they sometimes can be, means more young people can be employed and increase the number of people who aren't dependent on welfare. That is a fundamentally good thing. More people working. It's kind of scary you have to explain this to people from the Labor Party today. More people working is a good thing, and you should encourage that.
I've given you 18 seconds, but let me just say this. It's not a fundamentally good thing that almost 700,000 workers are going to be worse off. That's just unacceptable. We're talking about the most vulnerable in society, low-paid incomes, low-paid workers, mums, dads, single mums, and largely women, so the gender pay gap is going to get worse. These people are going to be worse off.
What about the less well-off that don't get a job because the pub shuts on a Sunday or the coffee shop shuts on a Sunday?
Well, you're making an assumption that these people...
Well, I can tell you,
you are making an assumption. We're talking about 700,000 workers, 700,000 families that are going to be worse off.
Outside of the inner city
bubble, that is not right.
Lots of shops close on Sundays because they cannot afford the penalty rate.
I know you get your coffee in Brighton and all the rest of it. These are people that serve us.
Let's hear Tim. Let's not talk over each other because our viewers cannot hear what we're saying. Tim, first of all.
This is precisely the point. Outside of your electorate and my electorate, the shops do close on Sundays because they can't afford the penalty rates, so there are less opportunities. In your electorate and my electorate, it is less common. I agree with you on that. That's where you've got to get out of the inner city bubble and get to where real Australia is, where people don't have as much disposable income and they can't afford the rates that are being charged.
Peter's response, just quickly, and then we're going to move on.
Just very quickly. Look, this government, the Labor Party actually was the only party that put in a submission to the Fair Work Commission about protecting penalty rates. And your government, 60-odd members have actually come out talking about cutting penalty rates. Either you believe in them or you don't. I don't know where you sit. I don't know if you're one of the 60, but around 60 of you have said, we don't want penalty rates. We want to cut penalty rates. Penalty rates are important for workers who are low income, who are struggling. It's a difference between paying their bills and you are killing their ability to put food on the table.
Gentlemen, we've both had a crack. You've made your point, so have you. And I think I've made a point as well along the way in terms of what I view as a pretty clear hypocrisy. But let's move on to the polling now and the context of all of this. We see PVO, Peter Van Onselen's report in the Australian today about the deplorables seeking to undermine the Prime Minister and the direction of the government. This story again feeds into the disunity, which obviously fed into this poll as well with Mr Abbott's intervention last week.
I think a storm in a teacup when you've got people like newly elected people like John O'Dunningham, Nicole Flinton, Andrew Hastie being included in this list. There are opportunities for policy discussion. New members of parliament take that opportunity because it's important for them to be participants in the political process. I don't think this story really has much weight in it. Parliamentarians will always get together and talk about policy. I do it from time to time, and it isn't always through formal structures, and I'm going to continue to do it, as I'm sure many others will.
So not an attempt to try and promote the former Prime Minister at the expense of the current one?
Well, these are questions you'd have to ask for them. But I think when you look at the class of 2016, the newly elected MPs who've come into the system trying to make a contribution, looking for avenues, and their opportunities have been provided.
Do you think your colleagues will be spooked by the numbers today? Hanson up to 10%, I should say, 30% in the seat of Dawson, according to a Reachtel poll. It's, these are quite significant numbers.
This is where I don't agree with the argument that One Nation is a benign political force that's reformed. The practical reality is One Nation has always been up to the same old political agenda, which is to divide parts of Australian society to try and boost their numbers. And they continue to do that by targeting different sections of the community to boost their poll numbers in the hope that they'll discover relevance. The problem One Nation always finds once they get to a position of power or influence is that the spotlight is put on them, their credibility is torn apart because their strategy is to divide.
Would you hope then, before Peter, I'll get your response in a moment, but then would you hope your party would not follow the lead of Colin Barnett and preference One Nation before other parties, including your own coalition partner?
But my view has always been that we should preference the National Party ahead of One Nation.
And One Nation last?
Well, it would depend on, you can sometimes have even more fringe candidates than One Nation, but certainly my preference is for them to be down the ballot paper.
Peter?
I love your optimistic spin, Tim, because when you talk about a couple of MPs sitting around talking about policy, that is really optimistic and it's so bright and shiny and lovely. But you know what? You've got these guys, Peter. I don't know what they're called, the drongos, whatever they are, I'll call them drongos. These are members of the government sitting around plotting and hatching plots to undermine their own Prime Minister and their own government. I mean, this government is absolutely dysfunctional. You've got a collection of over a dozen or whatever it was MPs hatching plots against their own government. I mean, that is absolutely disgraceful, and it shows this government's not focused. This government is not focused on the people that matter. They're targeting the most vulnerable members of society, whether it's your debacle of the automated debt recovery system for Centrelink, whether you're going after pensioners, whether you're going after penalty rates or calling for penalty rates to be cut. And yet, these guys are sitting around having a go at their own PM and their own government. It's an absolute disgrace.
I know the Labor Party is a policy vacuum and there's no actual substance that's put forward these days around how to actually fix and challenge the problems of the country. But in the coalition and the Liberal side of politics in particular, we actually do have dialogues about these things, and I think it's a really good thing.
We actually
want new ideas
about
how we're going to chart
we've actually put policies out, unlike your mob. And I saw Malcolm Turnbull the other day trying to justify what he'd actually done. He said, I legislated to get rid of the gold pass. I mean, he sat on it for a year, by the way. And this was his best kind
let's
of
look at the news
run
poll,
sheet.
because for you, obviously well ahead, Labor, 55-45, but we're a long way out from the next election. And the interesting thing is that Bill Shorten's approval rating is still only 30%. This is despite a government that's been, you know, to be polite, a bit messy.
Well, I was saying that they were a bit of a rabble and they were dysfunctional. Look, we're focused on policies. That's the important thing. And that's you see that the punters, the people out there, the average Joe, they look at it and they say, OK, Labor's putting out a policy on negative gearing. They're putting out strong policies to protect penalty rates. They're putting out policies on education, healthcare. These are things that matter to people. And that's showing in the poll results. But poll results, I mean, the most important one, I think we'll agree, is the one on election day. So we can agree. You know, the media can get all excited about poll results mid-cycle, but the most important one's on election day. And we're doing the job and putting policies out. So you'll talk about policy vacuum. It's not a policy vacuum, mate. We've got so many policies out there. You guys don't know where to look. You guys actually were talking.
If you could actually show me where these policies are.
I just told you. Negative gearing reform, CGT reform,
ones that were rejected at the last election when we actually put them up to the Australian.
So that's your excuse for not doing anything for 2 years.
Well, firstly, we haven't not done anything for 2 years. We've actually done things like introduce the Australian Building and Construction Commission.
Oh.
You know, you opposed that.
Yeah.
You know who did that?
Well,
we actually dealt with superannuation reform.
It's called rights of workers.
You asked a question. We cut tax for middle-income Australians. There's three things as a minimum. Each one of them actually
hit
designed
pensioners.
to build the opportunity to grow the economy.
You went after the disabled. You went after the vulnerable.
We can create jobs.
Let's call it.
Create jobs.
We're out of time. Gentlemen, sorry.
Thanks, Kieran.
We're done. Peter, Tim, good to see you both. A quick break on AIM Agenda. Back in just a moment. Stay with us.